You're listening to the Valleys to Victory podcast with Jeremy Greening, helping you move from stuck to forward in life's hardest seasons. Have you ever looked at someone and thought, they seem to have it all together, they're successful, they're capable, they seem to be full of confidence? Come on, we've all run into people like that. But then you discover that they've actually walked through a season where they completely lost their spark. Maybe it was from burnout, heartbreak, exhaustion, feeling disconnected from themselves, whatever it is. The truth is, many of the people who inspire us today have also walked through valleys that nearly changed everything for them. And sometimes the very thing that helped them find their way back into life isn't what you'd expect. So welcome to the Valleys to Victory podcast. I'm Jeremy Greening, and this is the podcast where we have honest conversations with people who've navigated life's hardest seasons and discovered a pathway forward. Because no matter what valley you're walking through, there's always hope, friends. There's always another step, and there's always the possibility of victory. So today I'm joined by someone I'm really excited and been looking forward to be talking with, and that's Jodi Salmond. She's a marine scientist, a speaker, she's a coach, she's the founder of the Element of Play, and someone who has been incredibly passionate about helping people reconnect with themselves through play. Now, before you dismiss the word play as something for just kids, I want you to stop right there. I think today's conversation might completely change the way that you think about the word play, because Jodi isn't talking about avoiding responsibility. She's actually going to be talking about rediscovering joy, creativity, courage, and what it means to truly feel alive again. Her own journey has included the breakdown of a significant relationship, burnout, and a season where she completely lost her spark. But through that valley, she discovered something that has now become the very foundation of the work that she does, helping people all over the world. So Jodi, welcome to the Valleys to Victory podcast today.
Thank you so much for that beautiful welcome.
All good, all good. Before we jump into your story, I guess for people meeting you for the very first time, who is Jodi Salmond? Tell us a bit about yourself, what you do, and what you're passionate about.
Thank you so much. So first and foremost, I would say I have always grown up near the ocean. So working as a marine biologist was always my destiny. And I actually decided that when I was really young, at about age 10, I decided I was going to work near the ocean and no one was going to stop me. So essentially, that's how it all kicked off. I made a decision. I pinky swore with my best friend at the time on the steps of year 5. And from then, I did everything I could that would put me in that pathway. And then essentially all I did was continue to follow the signs, right? Every time someone said, hey, do you want to give this a go? I just said yes. And essentially that's how I ended up working across the world. I worked in a variety of remote locations, always as a marine science background, with the exception of being a bit of a snow bunny for a few years, trying that out because, again, I just wanted to test myself as to new skill sets. And now I've been in the citizen science and marine science realm for well over 20 years, actually. And I've had the beautiful opportunity to meet literally hundreds of amazing leaders, in particular, a lot of women through Women in Leadership in STEM programs. And I just really feel so passionate about understanding people's challenges and especially burnout, exhaustion, all the things that we talk about day to day, and then kind of challenging them a little bit to maybe change the status quo and allow that expansion.
So good. One of the things that really stood out to me when we did pre-interview questionnaires, and you said this, you said, at the heart of it, I care about helping people remember themselves. I just thought that was a beautiful statement. So can you tell our listeners, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, so what I've really found is that in particular, especially with this podcast, right, we're talking about the valleys and the victories that come out of it. And I think what's really interesting is we continue to do all the things. You mentioned productivity and, those people that seem really on top of their life, but none of us know what happens behind closed doors, right? We just have all of these perceptions. And you might find people that their life looks like being extremely effective, whether that's in their financial world or their overall career or their family, but it's really hard to have all the things all of the time working well. And I think what's really interesting is that often you notice that people are doing everything they can to maintain what they believe they have to for their life. But actually, if you start talking to them, they've kind of lost their spark a little bit. And sometimes it just looks like they're doing everything they are supposed to do. But if you start digging, what are we actually all supposed to do anyway? And so for me, I love the opportunity when, again, it's a little bit challenging sometimes for people, but understanding what made them joyful and when did that become lost and why? And how do we actually start allowing them to build little bits of playfulness into their life in which smiling every day just becomes naturally because that's actually who they are. They love who they are and where they are and what they do. So for me, it's understanding where they want to go and allowing that connection to freely follow for them.
Yeah, I think your message is so relatable to many people. And that's one of the reasons I think you resonate with so many people. And we often see someone's success, right? But we rarely see the season that shaped it. So here on the Valleys to Victory podcast, we talk a lot about the valleys that people have walked through because I think there's so much hope to be found in those stories. There's purpose in your pain, right? Everything we've experienced. So you've shared with me that one of your biggest valleys was the breakdown of a significant relationship, and that was followed by burnout. So can you take us perhaps back to that season and explain that story a bit for our listeners?
Yeah, like I went through quite a tumultuous time in my life, which, if I look at it through a different lens, I am extremely lucky to have the friends and family and support network that I did to allow me to have that time and really work through it. So I do want to preface it by saying I recognize that my pain is different to everyone else's. And I never pretend to assume that someone's trauma that might seem insignificant to some is not to them. And for me, at that time, it was the breakdown of a marriage, and I was absolutely devastated. All the same questions that you hear other people talk about. What did I do wrong? It's all me. What could I have done better, etc. And followed on from that, when a couple of years later I started dating again, I had a really tumultuous relationship then as well, which I didn't realize at the time. But I really, really started to lose my entire identity, my spark, myself. And I just remember thinking, is this it? Like, is this all there is? Is this what I am now? Like, consistently trying to understand, oh, am I good enough? And that kind of idea of like, am I good enough? What am I doing now wrong? Because this person would be telling me, oh, why didn't you not do that? Or you should not do this. Or, that's, everything they said was, it made me feel smaller and smaller and smaller and being put into this little box. And it's only looking back now, right? So that was part of a really bad valley. And then followed by burnout. I was just putting so much of my time and effort back into work. I've always been very effective at work, and I find it easy to do it because I just know what to do. But then doing more work and more work and more work and not being able to process and understand and really have that opportunity to really understand it and move through it actually really, really felt like I was breaking. And I'll definitely talk a little bit later about the crab, or I can mention it now because I've mentioned it to you before about that crab metaphor. So
Yeah,
it was just that, actually, I'm going to tell you now if that's okay.
that's fine. Go for it.
So I'm a marine scientist. And so I study lots of different animals all the time. It's part of my daily life. And when all of this was happening, what I really felt like was a crab. And I started going really deep into personal development. I did lots of courses. I loved them. And I did a writing course, and it was about, expressing yourself, etc. And I wrote this story, which has stuck with me ever since. Now, for those that are not marine scientists or don't know much about crabs, when a crab has to grow, they actually molt. So they've got a really hard shell, but the only way they can get bigger is they have to get rid of that shell and then they actually grow bigger. But for a couple of days after they've molted, they're actually really soft and squishy because they have to squeeze through this tiny gap. So about 3 or 4 days, they sit hidden completely from the world. So they are protected as their shell grows stronger, and then they're bigger and better than before. And it really resonated because I'm like, whoa, the only way you can grow is something has to crack. It has to let you out to get through it. But also there's a period where you have to hide. You have to protect yourself and allow yourself to get stronger so you can be bigger and better than before. And for me, that I still get goosebumps because I'm like, to me, I am that crab. Everyone is that crab. The only way you can grow is you have to get rid of the old shell. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's so good. And who would have thought our listeners coming on today were going to get life lessons from the crab? But that is such an exceptional story. Another thing that you mentioned to me that caught my attention, you said that you began questioning who you were when you weren't producing. I think a lot of our listeners will relate to this. All of a sudden you weren't achieving, leading, helping, or being useful because of the burnout season. It's such an honest thing to say. How much of your identity had become wrapped up in being a capable person?
I think we're all wrapped up in our identities all of the time, right? And I remember listening to someone speak, and they had said, if somebody asks you who you are, how often do you first go to your work? Or I'm a parent, or I am this. Like you've got an identity wrapped around, often around, well, what you see as your key frame. And that really hit me because it's like, actually, if you don't lead with your profession or your parental status, like what do you lead with? And I remember someone saying this lady sat in the front of their presentation one year and she was like, "Oh, I'm a divorcee." And they're like, why is that your introduction?" And then the next year she came back for the same thing and she's like, "I am fantastic. I'm awesome. I'm this beautiful human." And that change of again that self-talk, etc., is really important. And so I think for me, when I think about like all of the words that were used to me, again, I recognize that I've come from a place of privilege that I can have these thoughts and time. But I also recognize that that to me was quite a bottom level of being really pushed to a point where I didn't recognize myself and I wasn't laughing or anything. And that was the biggest one is when someone recognized that I was not laughing, I wasn't eating, there was all of these things that I just didn't feel like I was anywhere near my full capacity anymore. So I do think a lot of my identity was certainly wrapped in what was I doing for society? What was I doing for my friends and my family? What was I doing for work? And then if you start doubting yourself, then actually, what are you doing for yourself? Because if you're not capable, then you can't actually do anything that you said that you would do anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, such an important point. And I think many of our listeners are carrying things that nobody else sees. Like we might have an awareness of it ourselves, but then we feel lonely in that because no one is really seeing it or we're not revealing it or showing it.
Yeah.
People are still going to work, they're still looking after the family, they're still showing up, but internally they're running on empty. And if someone's listening today, perhaps in that situation, Jodi, and quietly recognizing themselves in your story, what's one thing you'd want them to know?
I would say for starters, when was the last time you genuinely felt playful or joyful? It seems like a really simple question, but if you have a think about what happened, when were you laugh, when were you last laughing out loud at something that you genuinely felt so grateful for? Because that seems really silly, but actually, if you take a moment now and go outside and just see how beautiful the sky might be, or see the flowers, or play with your dogs, it's all of these little things that leave clues, right? And sometimes it is just being really silly, putting on a funny hat. I actually run tours and trips, and one of the first packing items is a funny hat. And everyone goes, "Oh, yeah." And yet, the first thing they pack is a funny hat, and all of the photos and the teamwork and that idea of like community all comes back through these little silly gestures. And actually, that's what people remember. Nobody remembers how serious you were. They remember the things that when you laughed together, because that actually really hardwires your brain activity and it creates this beautiful community. So I think if you want to say one thing, notice what makes you smile and do more of that first and foremost.
Yeah, no, that's so good. We're going to transition into talking about your turning point because eventually we are all going to experience one. And I love what you just shared because I think so many people believe if they're ever going to find their way back, it has to come through some huge breakthrough moment. But you just touched on some very simple things that we can do, like go outside, look at the sky, admire something. Just a very simple step. We don't need a life-changing seminar or a big major decision to be our turning point, or suddenly everything falls into place. We all know that does rarely happens. And your turning point came in a very unexpected way. You turned up to an acrobatics class. So I want you to tell us about that story and what happened there.
Yeah, so it's really interesting that I actually feel that this is a genuinely pivotal moment in my life, and it all did start from acrobatics. I'm sure it was on social media, and someone posted there was going to be like a free trial of what's called acro. And acro is partner acrobatics, which means actually there's never just one of you, there's at least two people involved in any of the activities. So I turned up to this class and I had sore body parts that I didn't even know existed for starters, but you're balancing on other people and you're laughing and you're falling and you're definitely getting bruises along the way. But what I noticed in particular was that everyone was laughing, everyone was failing forward, right? You fall off, but then you're like, wow, that was funny and that was hard. This is something hard I've never done before. And you try again and you try again and you try again until you get it. And the smiles and the community in that was always just so amazing that I remember walking out the very first time going, wow, I actually feel a little bit more like myself now. And when did that stop happening? And
Yeah.
it wasn't until I went back to this class that I realized that all of these underlying pillars was exactly what I feel that life should have. So, one of the first things, especially with relationship breakdowns, right, of whether that's like your personal partner or your friends and family, it's often associated with a breakdown in trust as well. So, at acrobatics, you have to trust your partner. You have to trust yourself that your body will carry you, and you have to trust that your partner will always have you because as a team, you communicate effectively together. And that might be simply via touch. The other thing is you have to ask, like, if it's okay. So you're consistently like, are you ready? And you have to answer yes. It has to be very clear. So all of a sudden, we've got communication, very strong communication, and trust. We've got failing forward because you usually have a third person that's actually a spotter. So they will catch you if you fall. And now, as you're being lifted into the air, people are physically lifting you up. And how good is it to know that you are genuinely not only like emotionally supported, but actually now you also are physically supported by others in this same area. And then we've also got accountability because when you fall and you go, oh, I didn't get quite get that move, everyone will goes, oh, hang on, I might just adjust this. Or maybe was that me or was that you? And you have this conversation and all of a sudden you both adjust something until you nail the trick. So there's all these little bits and I'm like, why are we not playing this out more in life that there's this accountability and trust? There's hugs at the end and it's this genuine community of people that want to safely hold you. And I honestly feel that acro was such a beautiful turning point because when all of these came together, it was like, actually, I can trust people. Also, I can trust myself that I hold myself, but I can do hard things and it's safe to fail. You are not judged. It is safe to fail. And I think overall, just great life lessons, which is why I've continued to do it to now.
You've covered a lot of ground there in that turning point, and I absolutely love that story because on the surface, to someone who didn't dig deep, it just sounds like acrobatics, right? But I really don't think that's what it's about. You just shared so much in depth. I think it's about something much deeper. So, what do you think was really happening? If you were to pick just one thing, what was really happening inside you that day at acrobatics?
I think for starters, feeling safe
Mm,
is actually potentially the number one thing because I'd felt so small and consistently put down and consistently felt that I was a shell of my former self is how I kept thinking of it as like I don't fill this space anymore. I'm smaller than I need to be. And I think finally being surrounded by all of these beautiful souls and just the non-judgment, I actually felt safe. And especially we can go into male versus female or anything else, but it's a human component that safety is so big. And I think that ability to honestly feel held and safe to be exactly who you are, and you're not too small, you're not too big, you're not too much, is actually something that is truly tremendous in that group of people, but also how nice is it when you've got friends and family that just accept you for exactly as you are? And that to me was what I felt I had been lacking for so long. So to have that beautiful opportunity, I think was the number one thing for me was, yeah, safety and trust.
yeah. Yeah, I think that really speaks to the value and importance of community and finding that safe place and people that are around you, non-judgmental, like you said. It plays such a big part in people's healing. So many people try to go it alone and try to fix whatever they're going through alone. But when we find ourselves in a safe place with community around us, it really magnifies, I think, the healing experience. One of the phrases that you used in your pre-interview questionnaire, it stayed with me. It was this: I felt a little spark come back. I imagine there are people listening who can't even remember the last time they felt that spark. So looking back now, what was it that reignited something inside of you?
I would say as soon as I walked out of that first acrobatics class, I honestly felt, huh, I feel a little bit lighter than I did before. And it was that realization of like, when did that disappear? Like, when did that feeling of just lightness and playfulness actually disappear? And then I felt like kind of played back the last couple of days, weeks, months, and recognized that it felt a little bit like Groundhog Day. Like I just kept thinking, is this all there is? What's going on? And so I think really it's looking at your life as it is and always finding one thing that you can at least start to tether to. And again, we talked about it earlier. Can you smile? We all know that, like, if you smile at a stranger, 9 times out of 10, they'll smile back. What are the little things that you can do that light up your life? And I think when I recognized that, yeah, it wasn't again until there was a breakup that I was out of that situation, right? Because when you're in it, you can't see where you are. You can't solve a problem from the same place you created it, right? So it
Mm.
wasn't until I was away from that situation and really I spent quite a bit of time journaling and processing and realizing that there's more to it. And I would say it's that element of definitely of community, as you mentioned. And I remember one particular thing I'd love to share because I still feel that this was a really big turning point as well, in that I have some beautiful friends, and one in particular had reached out and was like, had just wanted to see how I was. So I was having this conversation, and I had mentioned I wasn't really eating. I wasn't hungry. I couldn't function, and there was a knock at the door whilst he's on the phone, and I said, I've got to go. There's someone at the door. It's like 8 p.m. at night. Anyway, I hang up, and there's a pizza guy at the front door, and he's like, "Oh, there's a delivery here," and I was like, "I did not order pizza," and he's like, "No, you did." I was like, "I definitely didn't." So he got really confused and he went to his car. And then I get a message, eat the damn pizza. And it was my friend on the phone to me at the time had gone and ordered food because he knew I wasn't eating. And so that seems, again, so small, right? If you can buy someone a coffee or food or like that reach out, again, was really pivotal in recognizing that I have a support network, that it's not the end of the world, it's the end of one chapter. And actually, until you realize that these chapters build us, I would not be where I am today. I would not have the beautiful relationships around me I have today. And I wouldn't have recognized any of this had all of those pieces not fallen into the place the way they did.
Yeah, wow. That's so beautiful. Having friends looking out for you in such a way. It's again speaks to the importance of having community, close friends that are just there for you. And we don't have to do these journeys alone, but to reach out to loved ones and to just see them like your friend ordering pizza. That's such a cool story. Another thing I'd like to explore with you, because I don't want people listening to think this conversation is simply about taking up a new hobby, like we're talking about acrobatics. But it feels like play wasn't necessarily the actual destination, but it became the pathway. So, can you explain that a little bit for us?
Yeah, so what I realized is through acrobatics, I started just realizing that there are other things to it as well, right? So yes, agree. It's not about, I'm not telling everyone to go and take up acro, although I guarantee you will have a fantastic time and you'll meet some very interesting characters if you do. But what I noticed is that it was a beautiful space to converse and to learn new things and challenge my body. So there's all of these other elements on it. But I've always been quite playful, and I have recognized, actually, there's a couple of stories that come to mind. But so I actually won an award at a business award a couple of years ago. And during the interview process, they had said, "What are your values?" Now, if I fast forward, if I rewind even a little bit further back, in Antarctica, we did a lot of values exercises with 80 women on a ship in leadership and understanding that who you are in front of your friends and your workplace and everyone else might be different and your values might differ slightly depending on who you're with. And there I had said playfulness. And I remember there's a lot of climate discussions on the ship. There was a lot of tears, there was a lot of emotions. And I recognized that a few times I would make an educated joke to lighten the mood or break where I could see the conversation going. And we're in a very closed ship, like it was spiraling sometimes. And so I'd ask a genuine question. In one case, it was like, "Do you really think teleportation is possible?" There's people like, "What are you talking about?" But it turned tears into conversation. And then I dressed up as a penguin with a couple of other people. And all of a sudden, the entire boat was in stitches as we were running around dressed like penguins. And then So fast forward again to this business awards, and in the interview process, I had said play or playfulness is actually my number one value. And they said, in 25 years of doing this, I've never heard anyone use the word playfulness as a value before. And then on the awards night, they actually said, this person says playfulness is their value, which is how I actually knew that I'd won, but also recognize that maybe there's something to this. Like nobody talks about it, but when you start talking about it to people, everyone's like, yeah, I love play. Like, yeah, as I went, what does play mean to you? So all of these things, it kind of started this like snowball of like, hang on a second, all these little things that I have done for years is having an impact. And speaking to people about it since then, like we get funny outfits for when we're on field trips, like matching outfits. And someone commented the other day, it's like actually looking back, that is one of the most memorable components of a 2 week field trip is that you made everyone go and wear these silly outfits dressed as flamingos. Yeah. And yet you remember it because you didn't remember any of the bad times. So for me, it's like how it's not about ignoring any of the bad times. We know they're all around. How do you create moments of lightness? Right. And to me, that is what play is. There's also heaps of different ways that you can play. So for you, you might love to have movement. Movement can genuinely, like somatically, move things through the body. Some people, it's music or making things with your hands. Any of these playful activities can actually rewire your brain, but allows you the space to actually compress and decompress and then understand so you can move through it. And so, although there's huge amounts of neuroscience to suggest why play is one of the most important things, because it actually allows for increased curiosity, creativity, team bonding through playful events, all of this stuff. But if you, again, what's the things that you do? Like for me, my dogs are outside the door. I love when I'm down and like, oh, I've got to do all of these things. I go and play hide and seek with them. And it makes me laugh. They don't, they half of them can't find me, right? But it makes me laugh uncontrollably because then I have a parrot that starts talking over the top of it, and it's this whole menagerie of things going on, and it's chaotic, and I love it because it gets you out of your head. And I think that's really what play is about. It's not about being childish. It's not a childish thing. It's something that really helps with development. It's not frivolous. And we keep thinking that we get to play when we've completed X. But actually, that's the opposite. Play should be one of the first things you build into your day because it makes you smile. It creates more ability in your body. And actually, it makes you a happier person overall.
Yeah, so good. One of the things I love about conversations just like this is that sometimes our greatest valley, and we've just heard about yours, becomes the very thing that equips us to help other people. So looking again at the work that you do today through the element of play, and you've shared a bit already, it feels like that's exactly what's happened for you. So how did your own journey shape the work that you're so very passionate about today?
I think the best way that anybody can help those around them is really through shared experience and understanding that you have gone through it, right? Because now you have an understanding, and no one will have exactly the same experience, but you will always have an understanding as to what has happened and how it helped you. And I think that's really important. So what I did find again through some of these activities, I'm like, you know what? People are loving what I'm trying to do. And so I started coaching, and I just found that more and more people really loved the playful aspect. And yes, I need to also be clear that when I say play, it's not, oh, we've got to go and do like another team bonding experience, right? It's not about that. It certainly does work in team culture, but it's also about knowing and understanding the group around you and who you're with, and what play means to them. So for me, it was really about I've done expeditions all over the world with kids, with students, with teachers, with adults, with anyone you can think of. And a lot of it was actually international expeditions back in the day, so about 10 years ago, but with no phones. No one was allowed phones, right? Because it was all about connection. Same thing. If something happens, always like there's always going to be disagreements. If you've got a group of 20 people traveling together in close quarters for 3 weeks, there's going to be disagreements. How do you break it? Add something playful in there, right? Every single time, the easiest way is to break it. You need to break whatever the trajectory is if you can see that it's not going well. And I think that that is really what has helped drive all of these experiences. As an expedition leader, I've been a guest lecturer on a variety of ships. And one of the funniest things is everyone keeps coming back going, you are hilarious. I'm not trying to be hilarious. I'm just trying to make you smile. and I'm trying to get to know you at the same time.
Mm.
And what's like sometimes, and this actually, I think potentially works very well for your podcast and for your entire messaging, is that to me, my favorite game I'll ask any single person any day of the week is, what are you grateful for? So, what was your challenge and your favorite of today, of this week, or of this experience? And what I realized recently, I love doing it because it's acknowledging the challenges that we have, and they might be very different, as we've said, but it's also acknowledging and being grateful for the wins and what you see as your win for the week. And it might be just being, oh, it was sunny, or, I had a really tough email. It could be really simple things, but I think that's really important. And actually, when you get to play that, you get to know people better. And it's not a very, it's not a deep question, right? And yet
Yeah.
it still opens them up a little bit more. So I
Yeah.
think for me, in terms of how the entire play ethos has come about, is allowing people to talk and watching them over the past 25 to 30 years in all of these different aspects to see what creates teams quicker and what actually brings people back to themselves quicker. And the
Mm.
quickest way to find yourself is through those elements of play.
No, I really love that. And I love how this conversation is flowing because I was literally going to flow into what can we practically do? And you've literally just responded already to how we can just take really simple steps. And none of these things require people to completely change their life. They're little small decisions, small moments, small acts of courage. I mean, that's really the message, isn't it? Small, consistent steps to just break the cycle, right?
Yeah, most definitely. And what I would love to say is, I always challenge people to have a think about things that make you smile. If you catch yourself out and be like, oh, that was quite cool, think about it and make a note, whether that's mental or physical note, because each of these little things is a clue, right? And so if you start collecting those clues, you'll very quickly find the quickest way back.
Yeah. Yeah, this conversation has been so encouraging, Jodi. We've talked about burnout, rediscovering yourself, why play isn't childish and just little games or hobbies, but it's a pathway, and how one seemingly small decision can become the beginning of a whole new chapter. So before we finish, I'd love to ask you the two questions that I ask every guest on Valleys to Victory podcast. And so looking back now, how has your greatest valley shaped the person you've become today?
I would say without the valley, I would not be the person I am today. I really believe that saying yes to as much as you can and gaining all of the experience in life that you can is integral in this one life that we have. And I am grateful for the valleys that I've had, because I certainly wouldn't be the person that I am today, and I certainly wouldn't be anywhere near as playful.
I love that. I love it. It's amazing how often the very season we would never choose becomes the season that prepares us to help other people. Here's the last question. Imagine someone listening today. They feel exhausted. They've lost their spark. Maybe they don't even recognize themselves anymore. If you could leave them with just one small step they could take this week to begin moving forward towards their own victory, what would that step be?
I'm going to say put on your favorite dance tune, regardless of what it is. And if you can even spend 10 seconds tuning out the rest of the world and listening to your body and move as epically crazy as you want to, that is the perfect step to moving away from your valley and back into your victory.
Love it. I just had some incredible visuals of me trying to dance, but we won't go there. Jodi, if people have connected with your story today, and I think many will, and they'd like to learn more about your work, where's the best place for them to find you?
Thank you so much. If you have any idea that you want to come and join me in any kind of playful adventure, or if you just want to find out a little bit more about how playful you can be or how play plays out in your daily life, go and check it out. My website is elementofplay.com. And there will be a book and podcast which are really, really, really close to being hot off the press. So look out for all of that. And if you have any questions, comments, queries, I'm more than happy to chat, even if you just want to express yourself for the day.
So good, Jodi. Thank you so much for joining me today. I honestly think one of the biggest takeaways from this conversation is that healing doesn't always begin with doing more. Sometimes it begins with giving ourselves permission to reconnect with what makes us feel alive. I also love something you said earlier, that we shouldn't treat our aliveness as optional. We don't want that to be an option. I think that's a message many people need to hear. Aliveness is key and it's essential. So to everyone listening, thank you for joining for another episode of the Valleys to Victory podcast. If today's conversation has encouraged you, I'd love for you to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. And if you know someone who's been feeling burnout, overwhelmed, disconnected from themselves, why not share this episode with them? It might be exactly the encouragement that they need today. You can also find more resources, coaching, practical tools to help you move forward through life's hardest seasons by connecting with us at www.valleystovictory.com. And before we go, I want to leave our listeners with one question. What is one small step, maybe it's the dancing, that you could take this week that would help you feel a little more alive? Hey, don't worry about changing your whole life. Just take your next step, because no matter what valley you're walking through, you don't have to stay stuck. Just keep moving forward. You've been listening to the Valleys to Victory podcast with Jeremy Greening. For practical tools, encouragement, and support to help you move from your valley to your victory, visit www.valleystovictory.com. And remember, you don't have to stay stuck. Keep moving forward.